AITA for ghosting my own brother? Hi Reddit. I don't usually post stuff like this, but honestly, I don't even know where else to put my thoughts. Everything in my life feels like it's been flipped upside down, and I need to get it out somewhere. So, here goes. I'm a 27-year-old woman, and for as long as I can remember, it was just me and my mom. Growing up, I didn't really think about the absence of a dad. My mom never badmouthed him, never even really mentioned him beyond the vague statement of "he's not in the picture." That was it. End of story. And as a kid, you don't always question the blanks in your story, especially when the person raising you makes you feel like you aren't missing anything. And trust me, my mom was amazing. She worked hard, sacrificed so much, and made sure I had the kind of childhood where I felt loved even if we didn't have a ton of money. Birthdays weren't extravagant, but she always made them special. Christmas was never about expensive gifts, but about traditions. Friday nights were our pizza and movie nights. She was my best friend, my role model, my entire family in one person. But then, a few months ago, she passed away. Suddenly. No warning, no long illness where I could prepare myself, no goodbye. One moment she was there, sending me a text asking if I wanted to come over for dinner, and the next moment, I was identifying her body in the hospital after a heart attack. Grief doesn't hit you all at once, at least not for me. At first, I was numb. I kept thinking, okay, she's gone, but I'm fine, I can handle this. Then I'd find myself reaching for my phone to call her and realize there was no one on the other end anymore. It felt like someone had ripped out a piece of my chest. I tried to cope. I went through the motions, funeral arrangements, sorting through her things, trying to figure out what moving forward was supposed to look like when the one person who always anchored you is suddenly not there. And that's when extended family started to come out of the woodwork. See, my mom wasn't super close with her siblings. She had 2 sisters and a brother, but they lived in other states and only visited every few years. Growing up, I'd met them a handful of times, but we weren't tight. After her death, though, they reached out more, checking in on me, sending care packages, sharing stories about my mom I'd never heard before. It was bittersweet, but also comforting. Then came the moment. I was on the phone with my Aunt Linda one evening. She was talking about how proud my mom would have been of me, how strong I was, and how much I reminded her of my dad's side of the family. I froze. My dad's side? I kind of laughed it off at first and said, "Wait, what do you mean my dad's side? I don't even know who my dad is." And then she went quiet. Like, dead silent. After what felt like forever, she said, "Oh honey, I thought you knew." I didn't know. At all. That's when she dropped the bomb. Apparently, my dad hadn't just vanished off the face of the earth. He wasn't some mystery man who left before I was born, like I'd always assumed. He was real, alive, and not only that. I had a half-brother. His name? Ethan. 28 years old. Just a year older than me. I remember my hands literally shaking as I sat on my bed, trying to process what she'd said. A half-brother? For 27 years, I'd been an only child. My mom never hinted, not once, that there was anyone else out there connected to me by blood. I asked my aunt a million questions. Who is he? Where does he live? What does he know about me? Why didn't my mom ever tell me? But she didn't have all the answers. Just that Ethan was from my dad's side, and apparently, he knew about me. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept going over every memory with my mom, every time I'd asked about my dad and gotten that vague, not in the picture response. Why would she hide this from me? Was she protecting me from something? From him? Or was there some kind of big family drama I'd never been told about? The next day, I checked my Facebook messages and nearly dropped my phone. There it was, a message request from someone named Ethan. I stared at his profile picture. Dark hair, brown eyes, kind of familiar in a way I couldn't put my finger on. His message was simple. Hi, I know this might feel sudden, but I'm your half-brother. I've known about you my whole life, and I've always hoped we'd meet someday. I'm so sorry to hear about your mom. I'd love to talk, but only if you're comfortable. My first instinct? Skepticism. Honestly, my walls shot up instantly. Was this guy legit? Was he just some random scammer who'd heard about my mom's passing and was trying to take advantage of me when I was vulnerable? But then I looked at his profile. Real photos. A job listed. Friends tagging him in posts. It didn't look fake. And then I remembered what my aunt had said. I sat there staring at the screen for hours, rereading the message. Part of me wanted to ignore it. Pretend it didn't exist. My life was already messy enough with grief. Did I really want to invite a total stranger, even if he was technically family, into it? But another part of me, the part that was curious, the part that had spent her whole life with a missing puzzle piece, couldn't let it go. I replied. Just a short message, hi. My aunt mentioned you. I don't know what to say, but I guess, hi. And that was it. That tiny message started something I never could have prepared for. Over the next week, Ethan and I started messaging back and forth. At first, I kept it surface level. Where do you live? What do you do? He told me he lived about 2 hours away, worked in IT, and had a girlfriend he'd been with for 3 years. He never pushed. Never made me feel like I owed him anything. Every message ended with something like, only if you're comfortable, or no pressure, I just want you to know I'm here. I have to admit, that made me lower my guard a little. If he had come on strong, demanding to meet, insisting on telling me everything right away, I probably would have blocked him. But instead, he gave me space. Eventually, curiosity won. One night, I sent him a long message, okay, I need to know. How long have you known about me? What exactly do you know? And why now? His reply came fast. He said he'd always known he had a half-sister, me. Their dad, my dad, I guess, had told him when he was young, but apparently, my mom didn't want me involved. He said he respected that, even though he'd always wondered what I was like. And then he wrote something that really got to me. I didn't reach out sooner because I didn't want to cause problems for you or your mom. But when I heard she passed, I thought maybe now you'd want to know me. If not, I'll respect that. I didn't know how to feel. Angry? Sad? Relieved? Part of me was mad that this guy knew about me for years while I had no clue he even existed. But another part of me was intrigued. After a lot of thinking, and overanalyzing, because that's what I do, I finally agreed to meet him. Just once. Just to see. And that's where everything really began. So after weeks of cautious texting and second-guessing whether or not I was making the biggest mistake of my life, I finally did it. I met Ethan. And to my absolute shock, he wasn't anything like the nightmare scenarios I'd been cooking up in my head. I don't know what I expected, maybe some awkward guy who'd stare at me like I was a science experiment, or someone who'd make me feel like a stranger in my own life. Instead, he was amazing. I don't use that word lightly. I mean, here was this guy I had only exchanged a handful of messages with, someone I'd only known about for a few weeks, and yet, the second we sat down together, it felt natural. Easy. Like we were supposed to find each other. We met at this little coffee shop halfway between our cities. I remember walking in and spotting him. Hey, he said, standing up, giving me this warm grin like we'd known each other forever. I don't even remember what my first words were, something awkward like, hi, so, you're real. He laughed, not in a mocking way, but like he understood how surreal the moment was for me. And then we talked. Hours passed without me realizing. We covered everything, childhood stories, favorite foods, stupid things we'd done as teenagers, our taste in movies, which, by the way, was freakishly similar. Like, what are the odds we'd both be obsessed with the same obscure 90s thriller that nobody I've ever met in real life has even heard of? It felt eerie, almost like meeting a mirror version of myself in male form. By the time we parted ways, I was actually sad. I didn't want it to end. That first meeting turned into another. And another. Before I knew it, we were hanging out at least once a week. Sometimes more. He started coming over to my apartment. At first it was just casual, ordering takeout, watching movies, talking late into the night. But then he started doing little things that hit me harder than I expected. Like, he'd cook for me. Not just pasta or something basic, but actual meals. He showed up once with bags of groceries, took over my tiny kitchen, and made chicken parmesan from scratch. The smell filled my apartment, and for a moment, it felt like home again. Like my mom was there, fussing around, making sure I ate. He didn't just cook, either. He helped me with errands I'd been putting off since my mom died. Grocery shopping, organizing my storage closet, even assembling the bookshelf I had sitting in a box for months. It wasn't just the physical help, it was the way he noticed. He could tell when I was overwhelmed, when I needed someone to step in, and he just did it. No judgment, no strings attached. My friends noticed. One night, I had a small get-together at my place. Nothing big, just a few friends, some drinks, and Ethan happened to be there because he'd helped me carry stuff earlier. And honestly, he fit right in. Joked with them, made everyone laugh, even joined in on our dumb inside jokes. Later, one of my friends pulled me aside, smirking. "So, you and Ethan, huh?" I blinked. "What do you mean? You two look like a couple." "Seriously? The way he looks at you? The way you laugh at his jokes? Come on, spill." I laughed it off, heart racing. "He's my brother. Half-brother. It's not like that." But here's the thing, once she said it, I couldn't stop thinking about it. Because, sometimes, I did get butterflies. The way he'd smile at me, or the way he'd remember tiny details I'd mentioned in passing. The way he'd stand close enough that I could smell his cologne, warm and comforting. It wasn't like I wanted it to be romantic, God, no, that thought alone made me feel guilty and confused. But my body didn't seem to care about logic. I told myself it was just because I'd never had real family before. I'd grown up starved of those kinds of connections, and now that I had someone who cared, it made sense I'd cling to it. That had to be it. Right? I buried those thoughts as deep as I could. The weeks turned into months. Ethan and I became inseparable. If I wasn't at work, I was with him. We'd take long drives with no destination, just talking with the windows down. We'd stay up until 2 a.m. watching bad movies and making fun of them. He even came with me to visit my mom's grave one afternoon. I hadn't been able to go alone, it was too painful, but with him there, I felt like I wasn't carrying the weight by myself. But the more time we spent together, the harder it became to ignore the little things. The way my stomach flipped when his hand brushed mine accidentally while we passed each other on the couch. The way his voice softened when he asked if I was okay. The way I sometimes caught him looking at me a little too long, like he was lost in thought. And maybe I was imagining it. Maybe it was all in my head. But deep down, I knew it wasn't. Something was happening. And I didn't know if I should run from it, or let it happen. It was a Friday. I remember because I'd just wrapped up a horrible work week and wanted nothing more than to curl up with takeout and a mindless TV show. I wasn't expecting company, but then my phone buzzed. It was Ethan. "Hey, you home?" I typed back, "Yeah, why?" No answer. 5 minutes later, I heard a knock at my door. When I opened it, the first thing I noticed was the smell, alcohol. He wasn't falling over drunk, but he was definitely more than tipsy. His eyes were glassy, his shirt wrinkled, and his usually easy grin was nowhere to be found. "Hey," I said cautiously. "You okay?" He brushed past me without answering, collapsing onto my couch like the weight of the world was crushing him. I shut the door slowly, already feeling uneasy. That's when he started talking. Rambling, really. About how life wasn't fair, how he felt like a failure, how he'd tried so hard to start something of his own and it had all gone wrong. I sat down across from him, trying to piece together what he was saying. Eventually, it came out. Debt. Lots of it. Apparently, he'd sunk money into some kind of small business, something about tech equipment, clients who never paid, contracts that fell through. And now? He was in over his head. Debt collectors were calling. He was terrified of losing everything. And then he looked at me. Not just looked, stared. Like I was the answer to all his problems. "I need your help," he said, voice thick with desperation. "Please. I don't know who else to turn to." I swallowed hard. "Help, how?" That's when he said it. "Loan me 10 grand. Just until I get back on my feet. I'll pay you back, I swear." $10,000. I just sat there, stunned. My brain immediately went to the only money I had that even came close to that amount, the life insurance payout from my mom's death. The money I had promised myself I wouldn't touch unless it was a true emergency. My safety net. My only real cushion in this world. "Ethan," my voice cracked. "That money isn't for, it's not. I can't." His expression shifted in an instant. The vulnerable, broken guy pouring his heart out? Gone. What replaced it was something sharp. Cold. "Can't or won't," he snapped. I flinched. "It's not that simple. That money was from my mom. It's all I have left. I can't just hand it over." His jaw tightened. "Wow. So that's how it is. Family means nothing to you unless it benefits you, huh?" I stared at him, stunned. "Excuse me? You think guilt-tripping me is going to make me hand over 10 grand? You don't get it," he said, his voice rising. "I've been there for you. I cooked for you, I helped you, I've been your rock since your mom died. And now, when I'm the one drowning, you just, what? Sit there and say good luck?" My stomach twisted. "That's not fair. None of what you did was about money. At least I thought it wasn't." He stood up, eyes blazing. "You're selfish. You don't care about family. You never did. Maybe your mom was right to keep you away from us." That one cut deeper than I could have imagined. My mom. The one person who'd always protected me. The one who never told me about him. And now here he was, throwing her choices in my face, twisting them into a knife. Before I could respond, he stormed out. The door slammed so hard my picture frames rattled. And just like that, he was gone. The silence afterward was deafening. I sat there on the couch, staring at the spot where he'd been, my hands trembling. My brain was racing, trying to replay every moment we'd shared. Every laugh, every late-night conversation, every time he'd been there for me. Had it all been fake? Was every smile, every inside joke, every comforting gesture just a carefully calculated performance to get me to trust him? To soften me up so that when the time came, I'd hand over money without question? I wanted to believe it wasn't. That at least some of it was real. But now, I didn't know what to believe. The butterflies I'd buried, the comfort I'd clung to, all of it suddenly felt tainted. Maybe my mom had been protecting me by keeping him out of my life. Maybe she knew he wasn't safe. And the worst part? A tiny voice in the back of my head whispered, "But what if he wasn't lying? What if he really is drowning? What if you just turned your back on your own brother when he needed you most?" I hated that voice. Because even after everything, even after the way he'd spoken to me, some part of me still wanted to believe in him. But another part of me, the part that was exhausted, grieving, and suddenly very, very alone again, knew I couldn't risk it. That money was my future. My mom's last gift to me. And Ethan? Maybe he was never really my family after all. It was 3 days after Ethan stormed out of my apartment. 3 days of me replaying every word he'd said, every moment we'd shared, and questioning whether any of it had been real. 3 days of oscillating between guilt, what if I should have helped him, and anger, how dare he try to manipulate me. By the third day, I was emotionally exhausted. I told myself I needed a break. No more thinking about Ethan, no more analyzing, no more obsessing. Just space. That's when my phone buzzed. It was from Aunt Linda. At first, I thought it'd be one of her usual check-ins. She'd been reaching out more since Mom died, little thinking of you texts or recipes she thought I'd like. But this one wasn't that. It was a single message. Sweetie, don't feel guilty about Ethan. You should know, he's not actually your brother. I remember blinking at my phone, rereading it over and over, convinced I was misinterpreting the words. Not my brother? What the hell did that mean? I called her immediately. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped the phone. She picked up on the second ring. Hi, honey. Her voice was calm, but I could hear something underneath it, hesitation, maybe even guilt. What do you mean he's not my brother? I blurted. You literally told me he was. You said he was Dad's kid. She sighed heavily, and I could practically hear her rubbing her forehead. I know. I need to explain. I should have told you sooner, but I didn't want to overwhelm you right after losing your mom. My pulse was racing. Explain what? There was a long pause, and then she said the words that turned my world upside down. Your dad only had one child, you. Ethan isn't related to you at all. He's the son of one of your mom's old boyfriends. Not your dad's. Not family. I swear I felt the room spin. Not family. What? My voice cracked. But, he said, you said. I know, she said quickly. It was a mistake on my part. When I first mentioned him, I assumed you already knew the backstory. I thought your mom had told you. But I realize now she probably kept that from you for a reason. My stomach was in knots. So, you're saying he lied? About being my half-brother? Yes, she said firmly. He's known about you for years, though. He and his mom used to live near your mom when you were a kid. He's always been interested. And when he heard about your mom passing, I guess he saw an opportunity. I couldn't breathe. It all clicked at once, the butterflies, the weird attraction I'd buried, the way he'd slipped so seamlessly into my life. It wasn't some forbidden sibling chemistry I had to repress. It was attraction. Real attraction. And he had known exactly what he was doing the entire time. He fabricated the half-brother story. He inserted himself into my life under false pretenses. He gained my trust, my grief, my vulnerability, and then tried to exploit me for money. I felt sick. Literally, I thought I was going to throw up right there in my apartment. That night, I didn't sleep. Every memory of Ethan played like a horror reel in my mind, except now, everything looked different under this new light. The way he smiled at me. The way he brushed his hand against mine. The long looks. The family comments. None of it was innocent. He knew. He knew. And worse, he used it. He used my grief, my loneliness, my desperate need for connection, and twisted it into something that served him. I thought back to my mom. To how fiercely private she'd been about my dad, how she'd never told me about Ethan. Maybe she'd been trying to protect me all along. Maybe she knew what kind of person he was, even back then. And now, without her, I had walked right into his trap. The next morning, I got another message. From Ethan. We need to talk. Please. I'm sorry about the other night. I didn't mean what I said. Can I come over? I stared at it for a long time. My first instinct was rage. How dare he? After everything? After the lies? But another part of me, the part that wanted answers, hesitated. If I ignored him, I'd never know the truth. I'd never know why. Why pretend to be my brother? Why insert himself into my life like that? Why, everything? I didn't reply. Not yet. I needed time. But one thing was clear. The person I'd let into my home, into my heart, into the most vulnerable time of my life. He wasn't my brother. He wasn't family. He was a stranger who had played me like a violin. After my aunt's revelation, I spent days in a haze. Every memory felt poisoned. Every laugh, every inside joke, every supportive brotherly gesture was suddenly dripping with manipulation. And then came his message. We need to talk. Please. I'm sorry about the other night. I didn't mean what I said. Can I come over? I ignored it at first. But eventually, I knew I couldn't move on without answers. So against my better judgment, I agreed to meet him. Not at my place, no way, but at a public cafe. Neutral ground. When I walked in, he was already there, sitting at a corner table like he'd been waiting for hours. He looked calm, almost smug. I sat down, my heart pounding. So, you want to talk? Then talk. And that's when I confronted him. I laid it all out, what my aunt had told me, what I'd pieced together, the truth about who he really was. My voice shook, but I didn't back down. He didn't even flinch. In fact, he smirked. So what? He said casually, leaning back in his chair. We're not related. I just needed a way in. You wouldn't have trusted me otherwise. I felt my entire body go cold. That was it. No denial, no attempt to explain, no apology. Just smug confirmation that the entire half-brother story had been a deliberate ploy to worm his way into my life. You lied to me, or was I right to trust my instincts, even though I couldn't have imagined just how much worse the reality actually was? So, Reddit, I'll leave it with you. AITA for refusing to give him the money when he asked, even before I knew he wasn't really my brother?